The sabotage. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport of the ISS Pathfinder, humanity's most advanced deep space research vessel. Captain Morgan Hayes stood with perfect posture, her gaze fixed on the swirling celestial anomaly that had brought them to this unexplored region of space. 15 years of interstellar exploration had led to this moment, a potential breakthrough in understanding the fundamental forces of the universe. "Status report," Hayes commanded, her voice carrying the weight of authority earned through years of leadership in Earth's interstellar scientific fleet. Commander Elijah Chen looked up from his console. "All systems nominal, Captain. The quantum sensors are collecting data at optimal efficiency. Dr. Patel says we're getting readings unlike anything we've encountered before." Hayes nodded, satisfaction briefly crossing her features before returning to her characteristic intensity. The Pathfinder represented the pinnacle of human achievement, a vessel powered by experimental fusion drives, equipped with the most advanced sensors and research equipment ever developed. Its mission was purely scientific, seeking knowledge rather than conquest. "The anomaly's radiation signature is stabilizing," reported Science Officer Dr. Amara Patel, her fingers dancing across her holographic interface. "Whatever it is, it's not natural. These patterns show clear signs of artificial manipulation." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting intelligent design, Doctor?" "I'm not just suggesting it," Patel replied, rotating her display so Hayes could see. "I'm confirming it. This is a beacon, Captain. Someone put it here for others to find." The bridge fell silent as the implication sank in. After decades of searching for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence, humanity might have finally found what they were looking for. "Can we respond?" Hayes asked, maintaining her composure despite the gravity of the moment. "I believe so," Patel nodded. "The signature contains embedded communication protocols. With some adjustments to our transmission array, we should be able to." She was interrupted by a sudden alert from the communication station. Lieutenant Kaito Nakamura's eyes widened as he studied his display. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's responding to our passive scans." "Put it through," Hayes ordered, straightening her uniform. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a being unlike any they had encountered before. Humanoid in general shape, but with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors like oil on water. Its eyes, 4 of them, arranged in a diamond pattern, studied the humans with unmistakable intelligence. "Greetings, explorers of Earth," the being spoke, its voice processed through the ship's translation matrix. "I am Ambassador Zurl of the Valteri Collective. We have been observing your approach with great interest." Hayes stepped forward. "I am Captain Morgan Hayes of the interstellar scientific ship Pathfinder. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding." The alien's skin rippled in what might have been amusement. "As do we, Captain Hayes. The universe is vast, and knowledge is the greatest treasure. Perhaps we might share what we have learned with each other." Over the next several days, the crew of the Pathfinder engaged in cultural and scientific exchanges with the Valteri. The aliens appeared to be members of an advanced civilization that had mastered technologies humans had only theorized about. They seemed particularly interested in human medical technology and biological sciences. "Your adaptive immune system is fascinating," Zerl commented during a tour of the ship's medical bay. "So primitive compared to our own methods, yet remarkably effective in its own way." Dr. Sofia Rodriguez, the ship's chief medical officer, smiled politely at what seemed like a backhanded compliment. "We found that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most elegant. Our bodies have evolved over millions of years to combat threats we never even notice." "Indeed," Zerl replied, a strange expression crossing its features. "Adaptation is a powerful trait." As a gesture of goodwill, the Valteri offered to share some of their technological insights. They provided specifications for microscopic machines they called cellular harmonizers, devices that could, in theory, help repair damaged systems at a molecular level. "This could revolutionize our maintenance procedures," Chief Engineer Marcus Wong exclaimed as he reviewed the schematics. These nanobots could extend the lifespan of our components tenfold. With the captain's approval, Wong integrated a small number of the Volteri harmonizers into non-critical systems as a test. The results were promising. Power efficiency improved by 12%, and several minor glitches in the environmental systems resolved themselves. The first signs of trouble appeared 3 days later. Captain to engineering. Emergency protocols engaged. The ship's AI announced, its normally calm voice carrying programmed urgency. Hayes arrived in engineering to find Wong and his team frantically working at their stations. Warning indicators flashed across every console, bathing the room in pulsing red light. "Report," she demanded, falling immediately into crisis management mode. "We're experiencing cascading failures across multiple systems," Wong explained, his face grim. "Life support is fluctuating, propulsion efficiency dropping by the minute, and navigation is becoming increasingly compromised. Cause unknown," Wong admitted. "There's no evidence of external damage or radiation. It's as if the ship is degrading from the inside out." Over the next 6 hours, conditions deteriorated rapidly. Oxygen levels dropped to 78% of optimal. The fusion drive began to stutter, causing nauseating shifts in the ship's momentum. Communication sputtered and failed completely. In the converted cargo bay that served as a temporary laboratory for the Joint Research Initiative, Dr. Patel made a disturbing discovery. "Captain, you need to see this," she called through Hayes' personal communicator. When Hayes arrived, Patel stood before a diagnostic terminal, her face illuminated by its blue glow. "Look," she said, pointing to microscopic imagery on the screen. Hayes leaned closer. "What am I looking at?" "The Volteri harmonizers," Patel explained, enlarging the image. "They're not repairing our systems. They are systematically attacking them at the molecular level, breaking down circuitry, corrupting digital pathways, even degrading our hull integrity." "Sabotage," Hayes stated flatly. It wasn't a question. "Undoubtedly," confirmed Security Chief Commander Layla Curry, who had joined them. "And I found how they were introduced." She pulled up security footage showing Zeril accessing an engineering terminal during one of their tours. The ambassador uploaded something during this interaction, something that wasn't in the specifications they provided. Hayes' mind raced. The diplomatic mission was almost certainly a trap. Corey continued, "We've intercepted fragmentary communications between the Volteri ship and these nanobots. They're not just destroying our systems, they're studying them, transmitting data back to the Volteri." Human vessel neutralized as planned. Lieutenant Nakamura translated from one partially decoded transmission. "Their elimination will serve as warning to Earth. This naive species is advancing too quickly. Another century of isolation should be sufficient." Silence fell over the group as the implications sank in. Hayes felt cold fury building within her. 237 lives were under her command, and some alien faction had just sentenced them to death by slow system failure in the emptiness of deep space. "Options?" she asked, her voice deadly calm. Wong shook his head. "We can't neutralize these nanobots with our current technology. By the time we figure out how to counter them, critical systems will have failed completely. At current degradation rates, life support will be non-functional within 96 hours. "And rescue?" Hayes pressed. "We're nowhere near any established routes," Corey replied. "Even if Earth sent ships, they wouldn't reach us in time. Plus, our emergency beacon is compromised." Hayes straightened her shoulders, a decision crystallizing in her mind. "Then we adapt. We survive. And we make whoever did this regret their miscalculation." "Miscalculation?" Dr. Rodriguez asked, having joined the group. "They didn't just try to kill us," Hayes said, a dangerous gleam in her eye. "They handed us their technology in the process. Get me every scientist and engineer on this ship. We're going to capture these nanobots, analyze them, and learn how they work." "Captain," Corey protested, "with all due respect, we don't have time for a research project. We need emergency repairs. We'll do both, Commander. Hayes cut her off. Wong, focus your primary team on keeping life support and essential systems functioning. Dr. Patel, I want you working with our science division to study these nanobots. If they can break our systems, we can learn how they operate. She strode toward the nearest intercom and activated the shipwide channel. Attention all crew of the ISS Pathfinder. By now, you know we've been attacked, sabotaged by those who invited us here under false pretenses. They intended to strand us here to die, to send a message that humans don't belong among the stars. Hayes paused, letting her words sink in throughout the ship. But they made one critical error. They assumed we would simply accept our fate. They underestimated human ingenuity and determination. From this moment, we are not just fighting for survival. We are going to take their weapon and transform it into our salvation. As she spoke, Dr. Rodriguez noticed something strange through a nearby viewport. Unusual patterns of energy rippling through the space surrounding their disabled vessel. And when we're done, Hayes continued, her voice resonating through every corridor of the dying ship, we're going to show them exactly what humans do when backed into a corner. The crew of the Pathfinder, facing almost certain death, set to work with the fierce determination that had carried humanity from stone tools to the stars. What the Volteri never understood was that humans had always been defined not by the technologies they possessed, but by their ability to adapt, to take what was meant to destroy them and forge it into something new. The sabotage had been meticulously planned, but the Volteri had failed to account for one critical factor. When threatened, humans don't just survive. They evolve. The upgrade. 48 hours after discovering the Volteri sabotage, the ISS Pathfinder had transformed from a dying vessel into a crucible of innovation. The corridors hummed with activity as crew members worked in rotating shifts, conserving oxygen while maintaining a relentless pace of research and development. Panels hung open with exposed circuitry, tools passed from hand to hand, and the ship's standard operating procedures had been utterly abandoned in favor of desperate creativity. What had once been the ship's recreation deck had been converted into what Dr. Amara Patel called the workshop, a makeshift laboratory where the ship's fabrication systems had been modified with components from medical synthesizers. At its center stood the quantum processing array, salvaged from damaged science stations and reconfigured to run continuous simulations of nanobot designs. It's working, Patel announced, her voice hoarse from exhaustion, but tinged with unmistakable excitement. She gestured to a microscopic display where their first generation of human-made nanobots moved with purpose across a damaged circuit board. Captain Morgan Hayes leaned closer, watching as the tiny machines surrounded damaged components, not destroying them like the Volteri saboteurs, but repairing them, reinforcing molecular bonds and restoring conductivity. How did you solve the programming problem? Hayes asked, referring to the complex challenge of instructing machines smaller than a red blood cell. We didn't, exactly, replied Dr. Sophie Rodriguez from the medical station nearby. That's what makes this breakthrough so revolutionary. We used the Volteri's own quantum entanglement communication system, but modified it with a biological interface. Hayes raised an eyebrow. Biological? Rodriguez nodded. The Volteri designed their nanobots to analyze and break down our technology, but they also programmed them to avoid damaging organic tissue, presumably so they could salvage our biological samples after we were dead. Her expression showed distaste at the thought. But that programming limitation gave us an opening, continued Chief Engineer Marcus Wong, joining the conversation. We've created a hybrid system. The nanobots respond to electrical impulses generated by cultured human neural tissue. You're controlling them with brain cells? Hayes asked, understanding dawning. Not controlling. Collaborating, corrected Patel. The neural tissue establishes parameters, and the nanobots adapt within those boundaries. They're learning from each other. It's rudimentary now, but the potential is staggering. Hayes studied the display, watching the microscopic machines work. How soon can we deploy them to critical systems? We already have, Wang said with a hint of pride. Life support stabilized 20 minutes ago. Efficiency is up to 82% and climbing. The neural interface is distributing repair priorities based on ship needs. For the first time in days, Hayes allowed herself a small smile. And the Valtteri saboteurs. Our nanobots are identifying and neutralizing them, explained Security Chief Corey. But we're also capturing as many as possible. They're sophisticated machines. It would be a waste to simply destroy them. Can we reprogram them to work for us as well? Hayes asked. Patel and Wang exchanged glances. Actually, Captain, Wang said carefully, we've discovered something unexpected. When our neural interface nanobots encounter the Valtteri saboteurs, they don't just neutralize them. They're converting them. Converting, Hayes echoed. It's almost like an infection, but mechanical, Rodriguez explained. Our nanobots attach to theirs and rewrite their operating parameters through the quantum entanglement network. The process cascades exponentially. Which means, Hayes prompted. Which means, Patel continued, unable to hide her excitement, that within approximately 12 hours, all the Valtteri nanobots in our systems will be working for us instead of against us. The sabotage isn't just being neutralized. It's being transformed into an asset. Hayes processed this information, the tactical implications immediately apparent. And the Valtteri themselves. Are they aware of what's happening? That's where it gets really interesting, Corey said with a predatory smile. The quantum entanglement communication goes both ways. Their nanobots are still transmitting data back to the Valtteri vessel, but now they're transmitting what we want them to. Meanwhile, Science Officer Lieutenant Kira Johnston had been investigating the strange energy patterns Dr. Rodriguez had noticed. In the observatory, she calibrated sensors to analyze the phenomenon. Captain, you need to see this, she called over the comm. When Hayes arrived, Johnston pointed to her readings. We're drifting through some kind of quantum field that's unlike anything in our databases. Space itself seems malleable here, reacting to our presence, and more importantly, to our technology. Hayes studied the readings. Can we use it somehow? That's what I wanted to show you, Johnston replied with growing excitement. The Valtteri nanobots draw energy from this field. It's how they've been able to operate so long without an internal power source. But our hybrid nanobots interact with it differently because of the neural interface. They don't just draw energy, they amplify it. Hayes' eyes narrowed. Amplify it how? They're creating localized pockets of altered space-time, Johnston explained, showing Hayes a simulation. On a small scale now, but if we could scale it up, we could potentially create our own drive system, Hayes finished, the implications becoming clear. One that doesn't just move through space. One that reshapes space itself, Johnston confirmed. A plan began forming in Hayes' mind. If their technology can harness this energy, and our adaptations can amplify it, then maybe we can do more than just repair our ship. Hayes tapped her communicator. All senior officers to the briefing room immediately. In the cramped space of the briefing room, Hayes outlined what they had discovered and what she proposed. I'm not talking about just repairing our ship anymore, she declared to her assembled officers. We're going to rebuild it, enhance it, using what we've learned from our attackers and this quantum field we've discovered. Captain, objected Dr. Rodriguez, the crew is already exhausted from oxygen deprivation and stress. Pushing them harder could be dangerous. Being dead is more dangerous, Hayes countered, but softened her tone. You're right, though. Set up a rotation. 6 hours on, 6 hours rest. Prioritize oxygen to work areas. Even with these precautions, Wang interjected, what you're suggesting would normally take years of research and development. We don't have years, Hayes replied. We have 48 hours before the Valtteri realize something's wrong when their saboteurs stop reporting as expected. We're going to achieve in 2 days what would normally take a decade, not because it's easy, but because it's our only option. She looked around at her senior officers, seeing determination replace resignation in their eyes. They tried to write our epitaph. Instead, they're going to witness our evolution. As the meeting dispersed, the ISS Pathfinder, humanity's dying flagship, began its transformation from victim to something its attackers could never have anticipated. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of innovation and implementation. The hybrid nanobots, now numbering in the billions, worked tirelessly alongside the human crew, repairing, enhancing, and transforming the ship's systems. In engineering, Wang supervised as the fusion reactor was not merely restored but fundamentally altered. The reaction chamber is holding, he reported as the redesigned core came online. Power output at 327% of original specifications. The hull integrity is not only restored but enhanced, reported Corey from Structural. The nanobots have restructured the molecular bonds. It's now twice as strong, but 30% lighter. Throughout the ship, similar transformations occurred. Environmental systems didn't just return to normal function. They evolved into a semi-organic system that adapted to the crew's needs in real time. Navigation sensors extended their range tenfold, and the computer systems processed information with quantum efficiency. Most dramatic of all was the propulsion system. Under Johnston's guidance, the hybrid nanobots constructed quantum field manipulators throughout the ship's hull. These devices didn't push against space like conventional engines. They folded it, creating a bubble of altered space-time around the Pathfinder. Ready for field test, Johnston announced on the bridge, which itself had been transformed with holographic interfaces that responded to thought as much as touch. Engage at minimal power, Hayes ordered, now sitting in a command chair that interfaced directly with the ship's neural network. The Pathfinder shuddered slightly, then moved forward with impossible smoothness. Stars outside the viewport blurred momentarily, then snapped back into focus. Position, Hayes asked. We've moved 5 astronomical units in under 3 seconds, Chen reported from navigation, awe evident in his voice. Speed and maneuverability unlike anything we've ever recorded, and power consumption is minimal. Hayes allowed herself a rare full smile. Then I believe it's time we paid our Valtteri friends a proper visit. The Valtteri vessel hung in space near the quantum anomaly, its crystalline structure glistening with internal lights. On its bridge, Ambassador Zerl received troubling reports. The human vessel shows increased power signatures, reported a sensor operator. Our harmonizers have stopped transmitting destruction confirmations. Impossible, Zerl dismissed. Their systems should be in complete failure by now. Their life support alone. Ambassador, interrupted the communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Before Zerl could respond, the main view screen activated, showing Captain Hayes sitting calmly on her bridge, which looked nothing like it had during their earlier communications. Ambassador Zerl, Hayes greeted with dangerous politeness. I hope we're not interrupting anything important. Zerl's skin rippled with shock. Captain Hayes, we received distress signals from your vessel. We were preparing a rescue mission. How thoughtful, Hayes replied, not bothering to hide her sarcasm. Unfortunately for you, we've managed to address our technical difficulties. I'm pleased to hear, Zerl began, but Hayes cut him off. Let's dispense with the pretense, Ambassador. We've identified and neutralized your sabotage. We know you intended us to die slowly as an example to humanity. Zerl's demeanor changed instantly, all pretense of diplomacy vanishing. Your species has advanced too rapidly. You lack the wisdom to properly use the technologies you develop. We simply sought to delay your expansion until you mature. By executing my crew, Hayes asked, her voice ice cold. A regrettable necessity, Zerl replied without remorse. The collective has done this before with other emerging species. It is for the greater stability of the galactic community. I see, Hayes nodded. Then I should thank you. Confusion crossed Zerl's features. Thank me? Indeed. Without your attempted genocide, we wouldn't have been forced to adapt, to discover capabilities we didn't know we possessed. Hayes leaned forward. Your nanobots have been completely repurposed. Your quantum field technology has been mastered and improved upon. In attempting to destroy us, you've accelerated our development by perhaps a century. Alarm spread across Israel's face as sensor readings confirmed Hayes' claims. The Pathfinder now radiated power signatures that the Volteri instruments could barely measure. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No species has ever." "That's humanity's defining characteristic, Ambassador," Hayes interrupted. "We don't accept the impossible. We transform it into the possible." The Volteri vessel's weapon systems came online, targeting the Pathfinder. "I wouldn't recommend that," Hayes cautioned. "Our shield technology has also seen significant improvements. But more importantly, we've established a quantum entanglement link with your ship's systems. Your own nanobots are now working for us." As if to demonstrate, the lights on the Volteri vessel flickered. "What do you want?" Zeril demanded, fear evident in his voice. "Three things," Hayes replied calmly. "First, you will return to the Volteri Collective and inform them that Earth and all human settlements are strictly off-limits. Second, you will provide us with complete star charts of all territories within 1,000 light-years. And third, you will never again attempt to interfere with any developing species' natural evolution." "And if we refuse?" Hayes smiled thinly. "The same neural interface that allowed us to repurpose your nanobots is currently mapping your ship's critical systems. We could disable them with a thought. The choice is yours." Faced with technology they no longer understood, the Volteri surrendered. 6 months later, Captain Hayes stood in the observation lounge of Earth's orbital headquarters, watching as a fleet of vessels modeled after the transformed Pathfinder prepared for departure. Admiral Chen, formerly Commander Chen, joined her by the viewport. "The first deep space exploration fleet," he remarked. 20 ships, each carrying the neural interface nanotech derived from your encounter with the Volteri. They'll be establishing research outposts throughout the sector. And defensive monitoring stations," Hayes added. "The Volteri won't be the only species out there who fear our potential." "Do you think they were right to fear us?" Chen asked quietly. Hayes considered this. They feared what they didn't understand. Humanity has always been defined by our adaptability, our ability to transform challenges into opportunities. The Volteri saw that as dangerous unpredictability. "And you see it as hope," Hayes replied simply. "The universe is vast and filled with wonders and dangers we can barely imagine. But as long as we maintain that fundamental human trait, the refusal to accept limitations, we'll find our place among the stars." Below them, Earth turned serenely, unaware that its future had been irrevocably altered by an alien attempt to prevent exactly that. The sabotage had backfired spectacularly. Humanity hadn't just survived. They had emerged stronger, more capable, and with their eyes fixed firmly on the infinite possibilities that awaited them. What the Volteri had intended as humanity's end had instead become their true beginning.